We talk to the legends of the creative and entertainment industries. We talk to those on the rise. Lance Dean Anthony Nielsen asks about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. This is Outcast Creative, and this is Industry Interviews.
Hello. I'm here with my co-host, the Inside Man. Just in case I get disconnected, which has happened on a previous interview in the not too recent past. Today we're going to be talking to not only a very talented actor, but I love saying this about my guest. He's also a really, really quite special, authentic human being, and that's my good friend Cameron Jack, who I've known since, I think all the way back since the, I want to say the early 2000s. I think before I bring the man in, we should have a quick look at
I think so.
Cameron in action. Don't you think so, Inside Man?
I think so, absolutely.
I feel we should. So let's have a quick butchers of some stuff here.
I can hardly breathe here. It wasn't your fault. It was a drunk driver. It's for you to say. Son, Mike, his only son. Hey, we're all fucked up. So let's accept responsibility and not turn on each other in there. Brendan, retain your dignity. It's a fucking tragedy, boss.
We all love Dougie, and our sympathies run deep.
It's not my fault that he wants, and we'll do anything to find who's responsible. So how many inmates have you threatened? I utilize them.
Well, just to make a few quid.
Well, they get what they deserve, and I get to feed my family.
Lead deserve to be beaten.
Prisons are there to punish.
Prisons are. You aren't.
Most people would agree with what I do, you know that? You do, girls. Ring in your hands.
Did you threaten Elroy's mother?
Pansy families are easy money. Nobody wants that secret coming out.
But she refused to pay. And she told her son what you'd done.
You told me you weren't going to Desi's funeral.
I changed my mind. How did you know I was here?
It was that woman you were talking to.
What are you doing hanging around my house and upsetting my wife?
You were always the weakest fucking link.
Well, if you hadn't all listened to you, then we wouldn't be here, would we?
And if we all listened to you, we'd probably be in fucking prison. No wife, no family.
I know what I did and what I've had to hide. But I'm not the only one, am I?
Des is dead. I reckon Arthur's copped it. That kid George is dead. You might be next.
Okay, I think we're going to pause it there, although that show reel, there's 5 minutes more stuff, so you can check it out on the CAM Actors Agency website. Just Google it and it will come up for you if you want to see the rest. So without any further delay and without a drum roll, even though he does deserve one, Cameron Jack, good to see you, mate.
How you doing, Mucker?
Not too bad. Suffering a little bit with a chesty thing, but
oh dear.
Yeah, it's just been lingering for forever.
There's loads of bugs about.
Unfortunately so, yeah. Before we dive into Wheel of Time, which has been the latest thing we've been working on, I've just been watching it today. I've got loads of questions about that just myself, but let's do my usual quick fire questions. Just this gives us a sense of kind of what your upbringing was culturally, what kind of things influenced you, and if you do have any questions in the chat, guys, pop them in the chat and I will get to them later. We'll do those towards the end. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you could do me a really big favor, if you can share the stream on your social media, I would really appreciate it. So Cameron, what was the very first movie you remember seeing on the big screen as a kid?
E.T.
That's a good one. That's a pretty milestone. You know where you saw that? Which cinema?
Big Glasgow Odeon in the city centre. My dad was a film fanatic. I spoke about it at his funeral, and it was mainly VHS, but he took me to the cinema a lot.
Right. Okay. That's
Yeah.
that. I mean, that's a good choice. Did you cry when E.T.
Yeah,
seemingly passed away?
I did. I cried, and then it was all about the merch. I had all sorts of ET merch, and
Did you buy a BMX bike?
What's that?
Did you buy a BMX bike?
I got a BMX. I got a BMX. It was a Rally Burner, a yellow and blue one. I'm a child of the 80s, but my sort of top 5 movies are all films that I sat down and watched with my dad when I was really young. So he had a massive influence on that. I was sold from that point, really, just with my dad's influence.
Well,
and he was all.
You mentioned top 5 movies. I mean, I've just written a book about 128 times I went to the cinema, and several of those visits are with my father. So I had a very similar journey in that sense. Could you tell me what the other 4 are?
Say that again, bud. Sorry.
Could you tell me what you said? Your top 5 films are all films you saw with the dad.
Yeah.
One of those would be E.T. What would be the other 4?
First one is Night of the Hunter. Charles Lawton directed it. Shelley Winters and Robert Mitchum. So we watched that at home on cassette, and I was absolutely smitten. And the irony was Lawton got derided for that movie and never directed another film, I think. And you look at it now and it's a masterpiece. Two would be and I actually directed it on stage. 2 would be One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Great.
Yeah. Three's probably 12 Angry Men.
I've done a stage production of that with all women.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's a stage play that comes back every few years. 4, it starts getting a little bit. I kind of mix them up a bit. 4 probably Cinema Paradiso because of the absolute joy of cinema, the subject matter in it. 5 would probably be Heat, the Michael Mann movie. Then there's things like Shawshank, and obviously things like more modern things like Trainspotting. I know we'll probably talk about my musical theatre later, even though I've kind of shut it. Yeah, I've shut it out of my brain. But things like Guys and Dogs that Sinatra and Brando were in, they're etched in my memory. So it's quite an eclectic mix of films, the top sort of 10. But yeah, Night of the Hunter's the one that stuck in my head.
What's the last film that you paid for to go and see on the big screen?
Right, so because I've got a 6-year-old, most of my stuff that I watch now is kid stuff, which and I've made a rule that when I'm watching a movie with her, the phone gets switched off and I'm there with her, no matter what I think about the film itself. I kind of enjoy watching it through Alba's eyes. And just seeing her jaw drop. So I think the last thing I saw was probably Heretic with the Hugh Grant movie.
You didn't take her to see that, I take it.
No, we never saw that. The last thing we saw, she enjoyed it. She's got a real passion for horror. But I think the last thing we watched together was Dogman, which is an animated from a book. But jumping back slightly to the horror, when I was younger, I was watching things with my dad like Halloween and the Exorcist, the Evil Deads. Then the more obscure stuff like The Hills Have Eyes, I Spit in Your Grave, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Look, there is absolutely no way that I should have been watching those films. But my old man was so kind of like, he just put a film on and watch it. And then I kind of had a very sort of cinematic kind of view of life. Definitely, but there was a lot of horror watched. My old man loved the horror film. So I think I watched all the classics.
Putting the fact that you're a father to one side for a second, what would be your go-to movie for you personally, not your kid, to whack on a Sunday afternoon you could veg out to and probably watch any time? Might be a guilty pleasure. Doesn't have to be the Oscar winner.
It's not the cleverest answer, but probably Shawshank Redemption.
No, that's a good one. That's a film I watch at least once a year, and it's definitely a go-to when I'm stuck.
I think it's just a beautifully crafted film with some huge performances in it. I mean, the two leads, Freeman and Tim Robbins, are just exceptional. There's a lot of brilliant character actors in it, like Clancy Brown and James Whitmore, Bob Gunton, who plays the governor. I kind of, if a certain actor's in a movie, that will make me watch it. I'm watching at the moment, to deviate slightly, I don't know if you've watched it, but I'm watching Landman with Billy Bob Thornton.
Oh my god, it's amazing. We've talked about it on this channel. It's incredible, and the really like the way the female characters are written.
They are fantastic. But because he's such a strong presence, Billy Bob Thornton, I watch it for him. I watch it for the moments. As brilliant as everybody else is, he's the heartbeat of that show. And I say it because I teach screen acting as well. When things are quiet, I tend to go back to the teaching. I was teaching yesterday, but I say to the kids, if you want to, there's nothing I can tell you in terms of screen acting that you can't learn better from watching stuff like Landman, or in case of the Brick stuff, Adolescence, Blue Lights, Kin, Happy Valley. If you're watching good actors as an actor yourself, you learn. I think if you've got a brain, and some actors anyway, lack a little bit of brain. I think if you just kind of try and replicate the sort of the naturalism in most of the performances that you watch, you kind of get into the ballpark. But when I'm watching an actor who's too heightened, it does still grate on me. Because I started my first TV job was in 1995, and it's a literal car crash. It's awful. And then I just learned as the time went on that I had to dial it down and dial it down. But I'm still watching people, and I'm still learning. Whether it's in the cinema.
You never stop learning in this industry. No. Whatever job you're doing, you never stop learning. It's a constantly evolving skill set. Either acting or directing you're always working with different people, so you're doing different things.
I think with actors though, Lance, I'm on a series for the BBC, which is a massively successful kids series called Jamie Johnson FC, which is BAFTA and Emmy nominated. So I've been on that for 2 seasons, and it's looking highly likely I'm going back to do my 3rd season on it. But what I love about that job is because I'm on set most days, I'm very interested in what everybody else is doing. I'm always asking the DOP what that bit of kit is, always talking to the grips, electrics. I'm always talking to makeup, costume. I'm very, very interested in the process. And I think, this isn't a sort of me on here to be critical about actors, but they can be so insular and kind of sort of obsessed. They don't really understand how important everybody else's fucking job is as well as yours. And it does fascinate me. Like, and because I'm sort of familiar with everybody on that show, I'm very comfortable going up and asking questions. Because I'd like to. I've spoken to them, and hopefully at some point I'll get to direct some episodes of that. But directing, as you know, Lance, we spoke briefly a wee while ago about me directing for the theatre. Directing for TV and films very, very different. It's much more technical, I think. So I'm every day is a new lesson for me.
I think that there are very few. There are certainly very few industries where you can actually look at an end product, and not know how many people it takes to make something. It's probably the most collaborative industry that there is. There are so many people that are involved in making one single product.
It's incredible.
Everybody is key.
Yeah.
Last of my quick questions before we go down
on.
any other rabbit holes quickly, because we're gonna get to all of this. Post The Sopranos, has there been one TV show for you? I'm going to rule out Adolescence as well, because that's too easy an answer to this question, because it is so goddamn amazing. But has there been a TV drama series, either mini-series or show, that you've watched, that you've been a fan of? And I'm going to veto Landman, because you've already mentioned that.
Yeah.
That you've gone, wow, this is groundbreaking. I would love to be in that, or I've got to watch all of these. I've got to watch every season. Is there a show like that post Sopranos?
There's a few shows, but for me,
fire away.
Happy Valley.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, partly because I think the main reason is, in terms of what I was saying earlier about naturalism on screen, screen acting. I think Sarah Lancashire, Siobhan Finneran, James Norton, in that show are like, it's a masterclass in television acting.
Yeah,
it's
top of the game.
Yeah, it really is. And I watched the seasons. I watched it progress, and then it stopped for a bit. They let the kid grow up a bit, and it just thrilled me, that show. I thought it was brilliant. And I know I'm giving you two answers. I watched Tin recently, the Irish show, and I felt the same about that as well. I can't wait for the third season of it. It's an incredible show. Yeah, have you watched that? Have you watched Blue Lights?
I've seen a couple of episodes of it. I had a lot on when I saw it. You're in some of those.
I'm not in Blue Lights. I'm not in that.
No, you're in. Sorry, you're in River City is the one I'm thinking of.
I am in River City, which has sadly just been axed by the BBC after 20 years. So
along with Blue Peter.
Yeah, I know, mate. I know. Well, it's all about. I think BBC Scotland want to kind of divert the money into more sort of, they don't. I think they don't want a soap. They want sort of drama, more sort of mini series and stuff like that. But it was a brilliant show to work on, and there's going to be a lot of people struggling. And I think they should keep it running, but they've made the decision. Although I've just signed a petition.
If you had to pick an American drama show with that question, which one would it be?
Breaking Bad.
Do you know what, we get that answer quite a lot. Mine would be The Shield with Michael Chiklis. So I think that's the best cop show.
You're gonna hate me, mate. My brother's a massive Shield fan. I've never watched The Shield.
You know what? Watch the pilot. When you've watched it, you're going to be bulldozing your way through that box set.
My brother's always saying to me, "Joe, watch the fucking Shield. Watch The Shield." And I'm like, but there's so much content now. It's difficult to keep up with everything. It really is.
That's a show well worth revisiting. We've done breakdowns of every episode on this channel of the first 2 seasons, and we're doing
it's beautifully shot. Yeah. I've got another
class in acting and writing and directing. It's amazing.
Beautiful, but brilliant. But I've got a guilty pleasure as well. I love because I read all the books. I love Reacher as well.
Okay. The Tom Cruise one or the Alan Richardson one?
No, the Alan Richardson one. He's just he is Reacher. He is. Cruise was great. He was great. He's a foot too short. He's dark haired, but the movies were good. They weren't bad films. But this guy is Reacher. So we're on season 3, and I'm loving that. But it's kind of what I call popcorn telly. I just kind of switch my brain off and jump in. It's great.
Before we jump onto Wheel of Time, which we're going to talk about first, and then we'll go back in time and talk about how you got started. One of my regular guys in the chat, Curtis Warwick, is a massive fan of yours. Absolute legend of a man. Massive fan. So
That's nice. Thank you, Curtis.
I'll see if I can get a signed picture for you, Curtis, because Curtis and me go raving together occasionally. So
no, I saw a picture of you at a rave the other week, mate. You looked like you were having a great time.
Mate, it's been massively important for my mental health, getting back into dancing, and I used to do it when I was young. My mum was a choreographer, so it was all kind of part of the thing, and doing it again has been great for me. So, Wheel of Time. Right, so for anybody who doesn't know, this is an epic fantasy show. It's on its third season on Amazon. Cameron joins the cast in season 3. Look out for him at the beginning of the third episode, which I've just rewatched because I realised I missed your scene. I saw it from the titles onwards. That's why I just rewatched
story of my life, mate. That's the story of my career.
And that is based on an epic book series that was originally supposed to be 3 novels, ended up being 14. It went on for so
books,
long. The original writer was dying of cancer by the time I think he did book 11, and Brandon Sanderson came in and completed it and was chosen to do so by the wife of the original writer. Epic show. You know, I mean, huge money, big cast, massively complicated. It has to be said in terms of story and characters and. And now I have watched it all, but there was quite a big gap between season 2 and 3.
That's right.
And when I watched the start of season 3 earlier today, I was like, I can't remember who anyone is. What's going on? And there was a big fight, and I couldn't tell who was good and who was bad. And,
I have to watch. I have to watch the recaps every episode because I'm literally like, shit.
No, I need to do the same. So what I want to know, and I think what will interest people watching, is when you're coming into a show like that, which has got established lore, both on the show itself, you've also got source material you can read, you've got the books, you've got quite a few big actors that have been on board already. Is it literally just turn up and learn your lines and let's go? Or is there an infrastructure in place to give somebody like you a bit of a Bible about the world, so you know what you're doing and you know where your character fits in? How did that all work on the show? Tell us about that.
Right, it's a brilliant question. So I'll start at the beginning. So, as is the way with some of these massive fucking shows, and I didn't realise how big Wheel of Time was until I booked the job and then went out to Prague to start filming. And basically, often what happens is you sign an NDA, and then the show has another title, and they'll give you a brief sort of outline of what the show is. But when I auditioned for Wheel of Time, it was called The Purity of Water. So I had this sort of scene where I was kind of imprisoned, which is something with my casting bracket that I'd kind of done before. But I got the scene. It was a 2-pager. And I thought the writing's good. It seems like a really interesting character. He seems like quite a tormented character. So as wise actors say, you give your interpretation of what you think it is, with not a huge amount of information. And I sent the tape off. And then it was cast by the lovely Kelly Valentine Hendry and her team. She's really nice, Kelly. And I think they were struggling to find this character who's very quite intense and you know, quite a sort of, in many ways, quite a muscular character, and very sort of, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Intensity covers it best, but
he came across as a sort of dynamic warlord type guy.
He's a general. He's a warlord, and he's a force to be reckoned with. But when I sent it off, I had no idea what it was for. So when I booked the job, I'd obviously heard of the show, but Bex Elif, my brilliant agent at CEM, I'd booked something else, I think, and I was on another job, and she phoned me and said, just to let you know, you've booked the Wheel of Time. And I was like, I've not been in for the Wheel of Time. She went, no, the Purity of Water's the Wheel of Time gig. So I then I then shit myself because I was like, fucking hell, it's 14 books. I can't get through 14 books. But Lance, it's a brilliant question. So what I did was I dug in, did the sort of basic research on the show, on the book series, on him, without actually delving into any of the books. And when I did my research, there's this. I'm going to name check her because I don't know how often she gets name checked. There's this woman called Sarah Nakamura who works on the show, who's like the Bible of Wheel of Time. She knows everything about every single book and every single character and every single thread of the story. She's very involved in the sort of, the fan groups and stuff like that. But I got to sit down with her in Prague, and I said to her, "Look, should I read the books?" And we came to the conclusion that probably I would tie myself in knots with the books. I think actors can often overthink what they're there for.
Yeah.
So I sat with Sarah for the best part of 2 hours, and then I kept hitting her up again and again with questions. And I just said, "Look, tell me about this guy. Tell me about his journey. Tell me about how other people see him in the story." And I just had a list of questions. And basically, I was, kind of binging on the episodes that I could watch. I think I saw some of the episodes in season 2 in advance. So I was beginning to get a picture of the world, and I was beginning to sort of get a really good picture of him. But I'm not going to lie, it was Sarah that was absolutely integral to that. She was incredible.
This is her here, just to give her a proper shout out, because she probably, as you say, probably doesn't get much recognition.
Yeah, for me, she was utterly invaluable, because there wasn't a question I asked that she didn't know the answer to. And then I learned when I got there to Prague, and obviously, if you see the character, he's obviously got this massive scar across his face. So I was flying out for prosthetic stuff and all that, and I met the showrunner and Rafe Judkins, who's just a lovely, lovely fella. And Justine Gilmer, who's one of the writers and an exec producer on it as well. And they made it quite clear to me that they were struggling to find the character. And Kelly, the casting director, said to them, "I think I've got the very man who is Samael." And they watched the tape. And here's the irony in all of this. I mean, I got the offer on that show without actually physically meeting a human being. I just watched the tape. Obviously, physically, I was right for it. I think vocally, I was right for it. They liked the Scottish accent, and I have that. It's evident in everything I do. There's a kind of intensity. I'm basically my career's 95% villains, and I've always been quite comfortable with that. But whatever I presented on the tape, they just went, "That's him." And I'll be honest, when I talk about actors overthinking it, I said to one of my mates the other day, if you look at my face there, the costume and the scar do, I think, about 60 to 70% of the work for you already.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, there's a picture of the scars there.
They do.
Great makeup job, by the way.
Yeah, the makeup designer, Davina Lamont, and the guy who was the specialist on the prosthetic, Spanish lad called Jordi, were just fucking brilliant. And I spent a lot of time with Jordi, and I was in the chair maybe 2.5, 3 hours each day that I was in. So you build a bit of rapport with people, and that's important. But the show looks so spectacular, and the way they've kind of presented me, I'm probably doing myself a little bit of a disservice. I just thought, I don't have to be too clever with this. It's just, it's a kind of, it's a man with a huge chip on his shoulder about this. I don't want to do any spoilers, but particularly revolving around one particular character. And that's I think what drove him through the series, because I'm in 3 episodes in this season. So it was just it's like a revenge mission for him. He's intelligent in many ways, Samael, but not massively bright in others. He's kind of, he's so consumed by rage that he, I think, at times doesn't think clearly. But it was fun to play. And when you look like that, as I say, like, you know, a lot of the work is done for you.
Yeah. And for anyone who can hear those growling noises in the background, that's not Cameron getting into character, but it's actually his bulldog, which is
that's Coco.
sleeping nearby. Sleeping nearby.
Yeah, she's shameless. She's utterly shameless with the snoring.
How many days were you on this? Was it all in Prague, or did you get to go anywhere else?
No, I did Cape Town as well. So I was out in Cape Town for the best part of 2 weeks, and I did about 3 to 4 weeks in Prague. But quite often it'd be a sort of filming day, then a couple of days downtime, then another filming day. So all in all, because of the writer strikes in the States, I think I started Wheel of Time in sort of May 2023, maybe April, May 2023, and I finished it in February 2024.
Right.
And now, and it's taken another year for the thing to come out. So I've been sitting on it for the best part of 2 years. And and some actors can't do this. You have to keep your fucking mouth shut. You can't be on your socials saying, "I'm in this." I've seen actors do it. It's a really stupid move.
Yeah. You've literally just gone public with it, like literally last week, I think.
Well, weirdly, Lance, even when I was sort of, people were messaging me going, "I've just seen you on Wheel of Time," I still hadn't officially had like permission to start saying I was in it. So I phoned Bex at CAM and I was like, "Can we go with this?" And she went, "Yeah, they've cleared it now." So then all of a sudden you're like, you know, you're pushing it most days now. But it's a pleasure to be involved in. There's a very intense fan base. They're very passionate. They're very passionate about it. And I've not done a gig like this where, I mean, I've done a couple of movies. I did the Dark Knight Rises, obviously, and you realise when you enter a world with fans like that have that much intensity and passion for it, there's stuff that comes with that you have to navigate, you know. But it's part of the gig, and the fans have been very respectful, and I think in the main quite pleased with what I've done with the character. But there's still a couple of episodes, and my journey does get more interesting.
I mean, I've seen the trailer for the whole season.
Yeah,
and I have to say that even though I could barely remember anything from season 2 because it feels like so long ago, and I didn't have time to recap it. Season 3 opens with this incredible punch up in this tower. I don't know if you've seen it, but
unbelievable. I saw it.
Oh, it's an amazing.
I saw it in November. I saw it in November at a casting crew screening. So everyone was there. Joshua, Rosamund, everybody was there. And we watched this punch up on a big fucking screen, mate. And I was literally like, this is crazy. It's fantastic. I mean, and
getting beheaded and, you know, all kinds of.
Oh, mate,
it's great.
But it's beautifully shot. The visual effects are stunning. I think what's somebody was asking me about this genre the other day, and I think the important thing as an actor in this genre is to play it as naturalistically as possible. Because if you heighten your characterization, it just doesn't read in that world because everything else is so heightened around you. So if you watch Joshua, who plays Rand, and you watch Maddie, and you watch Marcus, who plays Perrin, you watch Rosamund, you watch Daniel Henney, it's very dialed back. It's it's rooted in naturalism. And I think those two sort of dynamics really make the show work. But it's like a mini film each episode. And it is, mate, it is nice to, I mean, I've worked for 80 quid a day on low budget films, which are equally as rewarding in their own way. But it is nice to go on to a show where I wouldn't say money's no object, but they don't worry about spending it. You know, that's a very different. Yeah,
they're not down to, you know, oh, we've only got 4 days to shoot. They can take their time a bit. And,
they can take their time. Yeah, that's the difference in it.
I mean, season 3, it looks good. It's got that epic feel. They've used a lot of real locations. They've gone to Namibia to film, which I was really impressed with. It's not just lots of shots of bland CGI and green screen. And obviously, the show uses that.
They spend the money.
Yeah, they do. They do. I've quite enjoyed watching season 3.
Yeah, they're very. Jobs will stick with you if the shows are populated by nice people. And Rafe and Justine and Rami Park, who are kind of, you know, at the top of the food chain there, they're just delightful. They're just delightful and respectful and kind and generous. So you leave a job like that thinking it was an honour, you know. And not every job's like that. Let's be honest.
No, well, indeed, we in the Inside Man have both been on jobs where they're definitely not like that. Let's. I mean, is there anything else you want to say about Wheel of Time before we move on?
Just honestly, mate, I've covered it all. It's an honour to be involved in it, and I'm very, 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 very pleased that I got to work on it. Simple as that.
Yeah. What I'd like to do is go back to, you know, you're just starting out as an actor, obviously heavily influenced by a fantastic dad who took you to see loads of cool films.
Yeah, bless him. Yeah.
Shout out to your late father, absolutely.
Yeah, no, he was a legend. Billy Jack. If
I had one.
Yeah.
Billy Jack. So
great name.
Well, I've got an empty glass of wine, so I'll raise that to Billy Jack.
Cheers, mate. I've got a soft drink, no brands named.
Yeah, I'm on the water when I do interviews. That empty glass is from last night. Your father aside, was there, when you were sort of starting out, was there a key figure like a teacher or maybe a drama teacher or somebody else that sort of believed in you and got behind you a bit, and maybe talk about that?
I've got a weird way in, because it wasn't the screen acting that it started with. It was the singing. So I had this singing voice, which I kind of discovered that round about first year at secondary school. And long story short, I had a music teacher, and I wasn't academic at all, and I wasn't good with my hands, but I had a music teacher who kind of saw something in me, cast me in a couple of musicals, got the old, you know, it's in every actor's book. The first time I got a round of applause, it is, and you think to yourself, well, this is interesting. But his name was Mr. McBain, and I was a bit of a rogue at school, you know, not horrible, but just a bit inattentive and couldn't be arsed, and just, I didn't enjoy school. I didn't like nursery. I didn't like primary school. Hated secondary school. I hate. It's why I don't do theatre. I feel institutionalized. So, but this guy who was very different to me, he said to me when I was about 13, he said, "You could make a living at this," and I was like, "Well, that's interesting." And then, of course, I did a YTS working in Marks and Spencer's, filling shelves. I was on £29.50 a week, and he had such faith in me. It never kind of left me that there was a possibility of something else that I could do. And then, I won't bore you with the singing stuff. I started entering karaoke competitions, and I was winning a lot of money, and I was winning holidays, and I was winning TVs, and I was winning, like I won my brother's honeymoon for him. Like I would go around Glasgow to these rough fucking pubs and sing my bits off. And then I did a bit of amateur dramatics, and then I just thought, I need to try that. A couple of people had said to me, you should try for drama school. Now, if I could probably go back and do it all again, I would have tried to go to maybe RADA or Lambda or Guildhall or Bristol, which we're about to lose because it's closing. But because it's awful that but a lot of them are closing. Drama Centre's gone. But the musical theatre world was what I knew, so I just thought that would be my training. And I went to a brilliant school. I went to Mountview. It's now the Mountview Academy for Theatre Arts, but it
Yeah.
was Mountview Theatre School. So Ken Stott went there, Dougie Henshaw, Eddie Marsden went there. Some really good actors. But I was on this musical theatre course and I was on a full scholarship for 3 years. But within about a month, I just wanted to concentrate in the acting. And I'd been plonked in front of a camera in a screen acting class, and that was a game changer for me. I just thought, I don't want to be on stage. I want to be in front of and potentially behind the camera as well. And I had a great teacher there, a lad called Richard Martin, who used to direct, everything in the 60s and 70s, Doctor Who and the Sweeney and all that. And he also said to me, he went, "You've got a little something there." He said, your behaviour's very exaggerated. You need to tone everything down, because I was bouncing off the walls. But every so often, somebody's just gone, "You can do this." McBain at school, Simon Dunmore, who was one of my teachers at Mountview, and Richard Martin. And I just thought, well, maybe I can, because you always remember a bad teacher, don't you? But you'll always remember a good one. And he did make me think the possibility was there, because there's no actors in the family. But I want to say, Lance, my mum, my dad, my sister Lorna, my brother Dave, and a very close group of mates. Two of my nieces are professional actors, Annie and Lucy. Their mums, my sister Lorna. What I've said to them is, it's very difficult to sustain an acting career for 30 years or even 5 years or 10 years unless you've got unstinting support from the people that are closest to you.
Yeah.
And I've been bailed out of holes financially by those people. I've been given a kick up the arse when I've needed it. I've been, encouraged. I've been very, very lucky. I kind of, in terms of sort of friendships and family, I've kind of had a bit of a lottery win, and they've kept me going, because you two know there's a lot of downs. There's a few ups. We're talking mainly about the ups tonight, but there's a shitload of downs where you're literally going, "What the fuck is going on?"
Yeah.
Nothing's happened. Nothing's happened for months. I don't know what's round the corner. I went for a job a couple of weeks ago. The following day, they checked in. It was a new series shooting in Ireland. They checked in the following day to ask about my horse riding, which is at best basic, but I can ride a horse. I took lessons last year and I had lessons in my 20s. And I had this feeling, I thought, fuck, they've come back quickly and they want to know if I've got this specific skill. Then they disappeared for about a week. And then like a week later, it was like, "I'm sorry, it's gone. Somebody else has got the gig." So it's these massive sort of kicks in the bits. But every so often there's like a huge up. And I just really want to say, I didn't plan to say it, but I don't think I would have stuck at it as long if I didn't have the support of my family and my mates. It's really been key. It's been massively important.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, but you're right. Sorry, but my apologies.
On,
I was just going to say that I think this is something that perhaps this sort of stream is really an invaluable resource for those kinds of people that are watching it, that want to go into acting or are just at the very beginning of their career, because I think an awful lot of people don't seem to realise that rejection is such a huge part of an acting job, of an actor's life. It's a rejection. Expect kind of 999 rejections and one one acceptance. And if you don't have that that basis behind you, that that strong the strong support, as you were saying, then that rejection is bound to get to people.
Wise words. And when I'm teaching, I do say that to them. I'm like, find other things to do, find other revenue streams, have other interests. For me, I spend a lot of time in the gym, because you know what Lance was saying about the Raven thing, you know, and the dance side. The gym for me, it helps with my casting bracket as well, but with my mental health, it's a really good sort of thing to have there. But I mean, I've never done the maths on my sort of what they call a strike rate as an actor, but I think a few years ago, I think I was booking maybe 1 in 5 jobs. As you move up the food chain, and the way the industry is at the moment with the projects that are out there and everything else that's going on, you know, that's probably 1 in 10 now. And you have to remain positive, you know, and the agents are out there, the good agents, mine and her associate Imogen Fuller, they're both brilliant, Bex and Imogen, but they have their job to do, and me picking the phone up every day and moaning about it is counterproductive to what they're doing for me. But a lot of actors just immediately blame the agent, get very angry at the industry, and when you carry that energy, people can read it. It's there, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I get frustrated. There's a lot of chat at the moment about the lack of opportunities for working class people in the industry. I think that's an incredibly fucking valid conversation, because it's so true. It is so true. It's just not balanced. And obviously, you've got people like, you know, Stephen Graham and people like, you know, I think Michael Sheen's had his say on it. There are people that are trying to make a difference, but it is difficult to navigate that, you know. But to get angry about it, you can be justifiably, you know, sort of have an opinion on it. But I've got mates that get on social media and sort of rant and rave and spout.
Never a good idea.
It's not, mate.
You know,
it's not. No,
we're not here to rant. We're here to inform and converse. I want to talk about Queen Will Rock You quickly.
Oh yes,
this is how we met. So for those people who don't know how I met Cameron, Cameron did a long stint on Queen Will Rock You. You may well be in this photograph. I can't quite tell, but you are in. This is Ruthie Henshaw's either a fan website or her personal website. And what's really useful about it is it's got the breakdown of the We Will Rock You lead casts. And we can see here you commenced on the 30th of the 3rd, 2003. And I said to you, I thought we met around 2002, 2003.
Must be about then, yeah.
Yeah, and you had just come off of doing a stint of this.
Yeah.
And off the back of that, you decided to direct a stage production of Clockwork Orange, which began with 3 naked men running onto stage dancing to Smash My Bitch Up by the Prodigy.
It did, it did. And, well remembered, mate. Well remembered.
Mate, I would not forget that in a hurry. And then you had an actor in it who'd done, I think, 1 or 2 plays with me called Rick Allencroft, who was stuck in a wheelchair.
Yes,
going, I'm disabled.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Two parts. Rick. He played Joe, the flatmate, and pedophile, the teacher. Rick was great.
I remember that. One of the reasons I remember that performance so well was when I went there, it was like a who's who of cast from Queen Will Rock You who were in the audience. So there were literally like probably about 10 of them on that performance alone.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot that loads of them came along.
They did. A lot of them came along. You did it down in Peckham.
Catford.
Catford. That's right, Catford, and not far from the bridge and the station. It was just sort of round the corner.
Exactly, Catford Broadway.
Quite a decent sized space. And there's a funny story I've got to tell you about that night, which I can't talk to you about on the stream. But if you hang around at the end, I'll tell you.
I will.
So that is how we met, and somebody put us in touch with each other and said, Cameron is a really proactive guy. Lance is doing stuff. You guys should meet. And that's kind of how we met. And it's a bit of a shame that we still haven't collaborated. I haven't directed you in anything yet.
No, I know.
But you've been.
I'm still waiting, mate.
things of mine, and
yeah,
I do hope
yeah,
that will happen one day. But that is
I do as
how
well,
we
mate.
met. It was an introduction through third parties. We met, we got on like a
Yeah,
house on fire, and
yeah, we
just
did.
stayed in touch.
Yeah,
Moving on from that, before we go to your other TV credits, and
yeah.
don't mind me getting a bit personal for a bit,
No,
but
no.
one of the things that my guests do often mention is about, big life-changing moments. And because we follow each other on Facebook, so we've kind of had a bit of an insight into the stuff we've been through. And as you know, my life's been a bit of a roller coaster the last 10 years.
Yes, yeah.
I've seen, like, you get married and you've had a kid, and I've seen a marked change in you since the kid come along. Do you want to talk about the work-life balance and how that's worked for you? Because you're still in a great relationship. You're a dad. It looks pretty green from my side of the street. It's got to be said.
Yeah. So just jumping back to the Clockwork Orange. That I was mentioning earlier. I'll get to Alba in a minute. I was mentioning earlier about mates and family support. That theatre, Lance, the Broadway theatre in Catford, my mate Martin Costello, he ran that theatre for 35 years. And I was doing a panto there, and he said to me, come and direct something. And I was like, I couldn't direct piss into a bucket. I had no idea what I was fucking doing. And he said, start with something that you're familiar with. So I directed Train Spotting, which I was in the 90s on stage with Big Gerard Butler was renting, and I was Begbie. So once I'd done that, I then did a tick list of every movie that I wanted to direct. Elephant Man, we did Clockwork Orange, we did Cuckoo's Nest, we did Romeo and Juliet. But jumping back to what I was saying earlier, I wouldn't have had that opportunity had my mate not offered me it. It was that little bit of luck and somebody just having a bit of faith in me when I didn't have it myself.
Yeah.
So Alba was 6 last week, Lance. She's I mean, you've seen pictures of her. She's a little stunner, and she's given me like a renewed sense of purpose. I was 47 when Maisie had Alba, so I wasn't a young dad, and I think in some ways Alba, she's the single most important thing in my life, but she kind of toughened me up because we've spoken a bit about the mental health, and I was always a little bit sentimental about the business, and I always felt kind of honoured to have the opportunity to be in it. And I think when Alba came, a couple of things changed. I just thought I have to monetize this business more than I do now.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, mate, I know. I have too romantic a view of it, and also during COVID, I wrote a screenplay that I've been very close to getting made, and I'm now back on that. Lance, you know what I'm talking about. So do you.
Yeah.
I'm back on the hamster wheel. I've got 2 producers reading it. I've got a director that it's sitting with. The funding's there to make it. It's whether this director wants to use this project that I've written or not. So, but I don't think I would have written the film, which is called A Darker Game. I don't think I would have written it if it wasn't for Alba. She kind of gave me a renewed sense of purpose, and I don't really have a huge. I'm not the fussiest actor in the world. I'm not somebody that sort of, is over. I love the process, and as time's gone on, I've been a little bit more selective about what I do, but it's mainly have I got the means for Alba to have a good life. Her mum works really hard as well, and is a very talented actor, is also a teacher as well. But from that point of view, I just want Alba to have good things and have opportunities in life when she reaches a certain age. So that's what drives me. I'm not particularly sort of too focused on what's next or where I'm going. Just is I guess the sort of interesting way to put it is I'm building a pot of money for albs. That's really
Yeah.
what I do it for, you know. As
And
much as I enjoy it.
How do you balance the scales of the work and time with family and the kids? Because it's an unforgiving business in terms of scheduling and stuff like that.
Yeah, it can be. You need very understanding people. Alba's mum is great. Alba's gran, Linda, is fantastic. We go and visit my sister. We go home. God, mate, that picture's a while ago. We go and see my sister over in Belfast. We go up and see my mum, and she's very, very loved, Albs. And when there's that much love around, you can manage, you can cope, you know. But she's at the heart of every decision that I make, Alba. Really. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a lovely that's a lovely answer there. Yeah.
I love it. I love it a bit.
Just looking at your other career, the other things that you've done. I mean, you've got 71 credits on IMDb. You know,
there's a few more. There's a few more to go on.
There's a few that are missing. I did notice that. And I like the fact that you've, throughout your career, you've jumped back and occasionally done the occasional short. And
I always do.
Yeah, actors often don't bother with doing that, but shorts are often how a lot of new DOPs or new directors or even new screenwriters get their first break. And I think it's a really valuable thing to be bringing your experience to, you know, somebody's first time short or second short or whatever. So
like you said,
great to see you've done that.
But I say to actors, it's how you catch the directors on the way up. I'll give you the perfect example. I think the best thing I've ever done is a short film called Boys Night, which is a short film which won a lot of awards, written and directed by a lad called James Price. And we shot Boys Night. I'll send you it, Lance. It's a little masterpiece. But James has just been commissioned 6 years after we shot Boys Night. He's got his own TV series shooting in Glasgow called Grams, which is about the sort of drug trade in Glasgow and the relationship. That's Boys Night there. The relationship between, I think, a younger character and an older character. So there's 6 episodes of that going out, being shot this year. I'm hoping, I'm hoping James does me a turn and puts me in it. He said he will. I loved working with him, but I wouldn't be on that radar had I not done Boys Night.
Exactly.
And last year when I was shooting Jamie Johnson, it's quite an intensive shoot. It's 10 weeks filming, 11 weeks filming Jamie Johnson. And I got offered a short film with this really talented young filmmaker called James Barlow, who I'd done a short with about 3 years ago. And James offered me a lead in this short. Now, I don't get to play a lead very often. I'm very much and very comfortable being a supporting actor. I'm a character actor. I'm not the sort of actor that leads a project. But I like the scripts. And I said to my agent, I want to do this short. And she's like, are you sure? It's over a weekend where you're not working. You're not going to be knackered. And I was like, well, I want to do it. And she said, she was really positive about it. She said, your reasons for doing it, you know, going out and meeting young filmmakers and cultivating relationships that can bear fruit later is really important. And I don't think, I'm speaking out of turn to say, not enough actors do it. There's a cynicism. It's only a short. It's like a student film. You know, I did a Wolverine sort of tribute film a few years ago called Close Shave. And Mahmoud Akai, the director, has in the last 2 years he shot a Samsung ads, and he's just done another huge commercial that Trevor McDonald's sort of the centre of. So this kid, I did 2 films with Mahmoud. I could see the potential in the work, and you can only hope that it will bear fruit later. I don't do the projects to. There's no guarantee of a job at any point, but you're on the radar when otherwise you wouldn't have been. You know, and also you have to pay it forward. You have to give something back.
Absolutely.
You know,
I think that kind of generosity does, as you say, it comes back round to you. I think if you're generous with your time and your experience, and you start to offer
100%.
that to younger filmmakers, and obviously they need people that are that have that kind of experience when they're first starting out. They need those people that don't need to be told everything, where to stand, cues, etc. But when you have experienced actors and experienced crews working with these younger directors, I think it's marvelous. I mean, I love doing this kind of thing.
I do as well.
Just really,
but also, do you not think it reminds you why you fucking did it in the first place?
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah,
it does.
And sometimes sometimes it's a lot more fun and creative working on the small thing, because there's a greater degree of freedom and you get more input. Whereas at on Wheel of Time, it's like, right, here you are, here's your lines, and let's get going.
Well, let's be honest. On a show like Wheel of Time, you're treated like a prince. Everything's 5-star. The hotels are stunning. You're very, very, very well looked after. And I love that. Don't get me wrong. But I also love the, getting changed in a van. Boys' night. Boys' night was. I mean, it is genuinely the best thing I've ever done. It's a little masterpiece. But we shot it, I think, December in Glasgow. Most of the film, I was walking around in a t-shirt, and I was fucking Baltic. But it was great. It was great, and I just knew James Price was. I just knew he was going places, and his break.
I'll tell you what, it'd be great to interview him if you could reach out to him. I'd love to get him on. And talk about
You'll be fascinated by James. He's a guy.
Sure.
The character I play is based on his dad, and he lost his dad not long after we'd sort of wrapped on it, and his dad saw the finished product at a festival. But again, I think James is a lad who's very, very. His dad was a huge influence in his career choice. And he's a fascinating character, James. He's utterly brilliant. Very, very sharp. Yeah.
You've worked with some pretty big names. I mean, there's you with Danny Trejo, who's an absolute legend.
Couldn't believe how small he was, Lance. I couldn't believe how small he was. I'm 5'7", and I think I might. The lift opened in Sofia. We were shooting Death Race Beyond Anarchy, and he was standing there with that wonderful grin. And he's built like a brick shithouse. I thought Danny Trejo was like 6'2". It's just the illusion of cinema. Lovely guy.
And Naomi Rapace was another one.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's one of my favorite gigs. What Happened to Monday, and there's a story there, because I shot What Happened to Monday, I think, when I was 42, and 6 months earlier, about 6, 7, 8 months earlier, I decided I wanted to take up kickboxing. I used to watch. I would watch actors on set being really sort of physically adept at the sort of fighting stuff, and I was often the guy who would get battered in the first few seconds of a scene, or kind of the fat, slightly overweight drunk who would start the fight and then wander out the pub. And I thought to myself, I'm gonna go and learn how to throw a punch, and how to kick, and how to receive a punch, and blah blah blah. Anyway, I trained with this brilliant Romanian kickboxer for about 6 months, a lad called Cosmin Aron, who was a PT at my gym, and that was 6 months, and then this opportunity came up to do this film, What Happened to Monday, and they said to me in the casting, I had all the right attributes for this fucking psycho at Dutch, and they said, we assume you can fight, and I was like, yeah, I can, but I was pretty new to it, and because Numi plays 7 different characters in the film, the fight sequence, which is the main bit that I'm in, took about 3 weeks to shoot. And I found a discipline I didn't know I had. I worked with the stunt team, and I went over and over and over. The fight stuff in that movie is pretty spectacular. And I went over it and over it and over it, and kind of got very sort of involved in it. But the one thing it taught me was that I'd learned a new skill at 42, and then got the opportunity to use it 6 or 7 months later in this amazing film. But I was a lot fitter at that point. I could do things then that I would very much struggle to do now. But it all came from just learning that skill. Not long before the film.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing, isn't it? You know, that's quite serendipitous that occurred. That that you had the foresight to do that just prior to that. You know, not knowing that this job was on its way to you.
I took advice from a stuntman. I've got a mate who's a stuntman. He's now a coordinator, Paul Lowe, and I said to him, give me some tips, and he said 3 things. He said, who's the stunt coordinator? It's a brilliant guy called James Grogan. He said, get James to get the stunties to film the vast majority of what you'll be doing, get them to film it and then study it, so that when you go out to Bucharest, it's in your bones, you've got the movement down. So that was the first thing. The second thing he said to me was, do everything at about 80% of the pace you would do it naturally. That stuck. Right. He said, and the most important thing is, if the coordinator taps you to step out of a scene to put your double in, don't do what a lot of actors do and start arguing and saying, I want to do the stunt, I want to do it. He said that what we're trying to do there is make you look better. But there was only one, there were 2 things in the fight, one thing actually, that they wouldn't let me do. The rest of it was, they were like, yeah, you're good to go. And it was brilliant. And it was a very different job, because it was just purely physical. There wasn't really any sort of huge sort of character work. It was just fighting. And I very much enjoyed it. Director's brilliant.
On that subject, what is the favourite character that you've played in your career thus far?
Yeah, I like him. I like Dutch. Dutch had no redeeming features whatsoever. He was he just turns up and it's carnage. I've enjoyed Wheel of Time. That was an experience to be on something that's on that scale. I mean, there's a lot of characters over 30 years. But this answer will probably surprise you. I was 51. That's Little Bone Lodge. That's a great movie written by a brilliant guy called Neil Lindpow, who plays the lead in it as well. It's a great film, Little Bone Lodge, horror. So basically, I was 51 when I got my series regular on Jamie Johnson FC. So it probably surprised a lot of people for me to say my favourite job so far has been a kids series. But because I'm pretty much part of the fabric in it as a regular, because my career up until 2 or 3 years ago was very much based around being a day player, which is a tricky gig. Everybody's familiar with each other. You turn up, you do maybe two scenes, you don't know anybody. Luckily, I'm quite outgoing and I could always navigate it. But Jamie Johnson was the first time that a company said to me, look, we're going to trust you with 8 or 9 episodes out of the 12, and you're going to be here solidly for 10 weeks. So from the aspect of feeling part of a family, that's the first time I genuinely felt like that. The other time you feel a bit like a tourist coming in and out, because you're not sort of in with the sort of nuts and bolts of it. But Jamie Johnson's different. So at 51, and there's a lesson in here, at 51 I got my first series regular. So that's gone down as potentially one of my very favourite jobs, because I feel like I am, sounds a bit vain, kind of valued, and you don't always feel like that as an actor. You feel
I don't think that sounds vain at all. I think that's a very legitimate thing to say, to feel, be part of it. And there's also that family feeling when you're part of a show and you're a series regular, and you know you get more time
I'd
to
never
know
had that,
people.
Lance. I'd never had that because I was always like a guest or a couple of episodes here and there. And then when I went to CAM to Beck's Elif, I did say to her, I said, I want to stop playing the smaller parts and just kind of wait out for the bigger ones. And it's come to fruition, you know.
Yeah,
There's still gaps, you know, the momentum sort of stalls occasionally, but you just got to wait for the next one, you know, and be ready. And when the tape comes or the in the room audition, which is exceptionally rare, you have to be at the top
yeah,
of your
I know.
game. Yeah, oh
Yeah,
God, mate, so rare now. I think
yeah,
I've had three physical meetings in 2 years.
yeah,
Everything else has been tapes,
yeah.
and
I mean,
I miss engaging with people.
yeah, it's a very different skill set doing a self
Yeah.
tape as well. And
Oh my God,
I
it
mean,
is. Yeah.
that's one of the things that's one of my part-time jobs is I do self-tapes with actors, and I
Yeah.
sort of coach them through it and make
Yeah.
sure they try and get the best out of it, and preferably send
Yeah.
them 2 takes as well if you can, 2 different takes.
Yeah, we had that discussion recently because I'm a sort of person I would generally send one take because I think most producers and directors when they look at it they know within 15 to 20 seconds whether you're in the running or not. But my agent did say to me, I think there are probably occasions where 2 takes will show your range a bit more. So that is good advice, lads.
That's
Yeah.
the reason I would, especially if an actor's not that well known.
Yeah.
I mean, when I used to go into castings when I was doing more acting in my
Yeah.
20s and early 30s,
Yeah.
when I went in and they said, "Are you ready?" and it's a bit naughty, but I'd always say, "I am. I've got 2 ways I'd love to try with this. I'm not sure
Yeah.
which is more appropriate. Would you mind if
Yeah.
I just did them both one after the other?" And
Brilliant.
I don't think I ever got told no.
No.
And whenever I did that, 9 times out of 10, I got the job.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, I bet you did.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
just that I don't think that's not. I think that's just being assertive and showing
yeah,
your range. I do
yeah,
think the industry needs to get back to a place where we're going back into rooms because with
yeah.
the best will in the world, you know, you can't really tell if someone can take direction through a self
No,
tape.
no.
I got a tape weeks and weeks and weeks ago, but the director did a 4-minute video clip at the top of the tape with what he wanted, and it was a fucking revelation. And I said to my
Right.
agent, I was like, "Why don't they all do that?" He was talking
Yeah,
about, you
yeah,
know, what they were after, sort of stylistically, and he
yeah.
articulated it beautifully, and I felt like it was almost like you were back in a room again, and because I had his opinion of how he thought it should be played,
Sure.
but the advantage of taping is you can do as many takes as you want, but I'm
Yeah.
sure, Lance, when you're coaching somebody, you know, you don't want to be doing 8, 9, 10 takes. You're trying to get it within 2 or 3, right?
Yeah, the first sort of 3 or 4 are usually the
Yeah,
best one, and
yeah,
if you
they're the
don't
ones. Yeah,
yeah, you don't nail it by then, you start
yeah,
coming unraveled, and you know, depending on
yeah,
what it is. Well,
yeah.
we're almost out of time. I mean,
That
listen,
was
we can
fun. It was fun. It was fun.
almost. I've got a few questions in the chat. Would you mind answering them before you go?
No, mate, not at all.
Got a couple of questions. So one here from David Macy. I know he's put a few in the chat. I'll try and do them all, David.
Yeah.
Jack, you've worked with the late great Rick Mail, and wasn't he great? What was
Brilliant.
he like to work with, and was a comedy god? I've actually met him myself as well, twice,
Yeah.
in fact.
Yeah, I knew.
How did you find working with him?
Brilliant. Rick was fucking brilliant. I mean, he wasn't as well as he had been when I did Man Down with him. Because obviously it had the accident on the quad bike and stuff like that, and he would sometimes need to just take a breather. But when he was in full flow, genius, and really rare rare quality that Rick had. And I worked with Lance. You'll remember this because you saw the show. But Nigel Planer was
Nigel,
yeah. So Nigel was in We Will Rock You. So the first thing I said to Rick was, I said, "Oh, Nigel's a mate of mine." So that then meant that Rick was really welcoming. It was just an absolute. It was an absolute joy, and I cannot believe he's not here. It was just. It was just an absolute pleasure. I've got no other way to put it. And when you watch, I mean, he nicks every scene he's in. He's just so good. He's so good. Yeah.
My pleased to see Europe. I got a canoe in my pocket. Yeah, I'll never forget that line from Black.
Iconic.
Proctafile wants to know if you ended up, because you said you collected a lot of ET merchandise. Did you collect that terrible ET Atari game that didn't really work properly? They all ended up in landfill in America.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I don't book a lot of video games as an actor. I have very little interest in them, so that wouldn't have been something that I would have had. I've got mates who are kind of games obsessed, and I've got mates that do really well on video games as actors. And I need to dive more deeply into the video game world because I don't book a lot of the gigs that I get auditions for. So I didn't have that Atari game, unfortunately. Probably worth a few quid now, maybe? No?
Yeah, worth a lot.
Maybe it's. I mean, you can't play it because it's basically unplayable. They did a documentary about it, about how that thousands of them all ended up in this landfill site because they couldn't sell them because it was rushed and it wasn't properly developed. The game didn't really work. And
my other obsession, just quickly, was Star Wars figures. I had Star Wars figures and I had the Millennium Falcon, I had the AT-AT, and I gave them mate, I gave them away to a mate, my dad's mate's son, and I wish I'd hung on to them because some of them would have been worth a few quid. Some of them are still in the boxes.
They would have been worth a few quid. I did want to ask this question. David asks, "What is your dream job?" I mean, this is a two-parter, right? What's have you got a dream role that you'd love to play? You know, captain of a starship in a Star Trek show, or whatever it might be, villain in Landman next season, whatever. And then also, second part to that question, out of all the directors that you could do a gig for, who would be right at the top of the tree that you'd be like, in my lifetime, I want to do a film with?
Yeah. Right. So
I know that's a tough one. That's
well, there's a few. I mean, I've got Chris Nolan and I've got Guy Ritchie on the CV. I've got Kerry Joji Fukunaga on the CV. So it's not a bad CV.
No, but who's maybe someone you'd love to work with that you haven't? I mean, I'm guessing you were probably a big fan of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because I absolutely love that film.
Yeah, I love that movie. Yeah. He's saying he's only going to do one more movie, Tarantino, isn't he?
Better get your agent on the case.
Yeah, mate. It would be the dream. There's a lot of very talented directors out there. Like almost too many to name. I've never been sort of too fussed whether it's TV or film. So there's a lot of good sort of television directors out there as well that I've not worked with yet. But that's an interesting question. It's not something I thought too deeply about. I always wanted to work with Guy Ritchie. That was great. And I shot Wrath of Man in Los Angeles with him. I wouldn't mind working with Guy again, to be honest, because I like the energy on the projects. What else? Yeah, what was the other question? The dream role.
The dream role. I mean, Shakespeare or like Captain of a Starship.
I'm not a Shakespeare. I'm not a massive Shakespeare fan. I always struggled with it at drama school. I always found it too academic. So it wouldn't be anything like that. It would be. I tell you, a show I absolutely love. I would love to be in Mayor of Kingstown, the Jeremy Renner Paramount show.
they all come under the umbrella of Taylor Sheridan, and I can't remember if we did it Inside Man or not, but we said we were going to do a Taylor Sheridan special, didn't we, and talk about his career.
We did, yes, we did say we were going to do that.
I'd love.
Got loads of them up there.
I'd love to work with that lot. I mean, Hugh Dillon, who kind of co-created that show with Taylor Sheridan, who plays Ian in that show, I think is just fantastic. But again, Mayor of Kingstown stands out for me, but it's Jeremy Renner's performance, really.
There could definitely be a Scottish prisoner in
there could be, mate. There could be. Yeah. Well, I worked with Richard Brake, and Rich is in it, so you never know. The answer to that is very easy. The screenplay that I've written, which is called A Darker Game, I wrote the lead for myself in that film. It's a relatively low budget drama. But when I was, and you'll know this, guys, when I was sitting down with producers, they basically told me I didn't bring anything to the table in terms of finance. So it would be a lovely fuck you if I could do that. But I don't know if that's going to be possible. I'm talking to a couple of different producers about getting the movie made. I would step aside from the lead role to get it made, but the dream would be to play Gary in that film.
I'll talk to you about. I'll tell you something about that when we finish.
Listen, I actually have a couple of questions before we
go on. You
if you don't mind.
We've got limited time, but jump in quickly, mate.
What I was going to ask was, so any director from the past who's no longer with us, and any actor from the past who's no longer with us, if you had an opportunity to work opposite any actor that's now passed away, and any director that has now passed away,
you got time machine in the words. Yeah, that's a good one.
That's good. I know it's fairly recent, but I loved, and again, it's come through my dad. I loved Gene Hackman, and I know Gene Hackman. Yeah, I know Hackman kind of walked away with 20 years kind of before he passed. But that would be incredible. Just to have the opportunity to be with, Nicholson's not, Jack Nicholson's still with us, but obviously doesn't do it anymore. Brando was phenomenal. I loved. I mean, there's so many actors I love. I loved Pete Postlethwaite. I thought he was.
Oh my god!
He was fucking brilliant.
He was amazing. Yeah. We did a special stream about Hackman on his birthday, literally 2 weeks before he passed away. Myself and we did. I saw it was his birthday. I saw he was 95. And he's the reason I got in the business. He's the reason I wanted to become an actor when I was a kid, seeing him in the Poseidon Adventure. I want to do that.
I love the Poseidon Adventure. In terms of directors, again going back to my dad, and he's no longer with us. I did like. And I don't think he was taken as seriously as some directors, but I liked Brian De Palma. I liked a lot of his movies.
I love him. He's still around, by the way.
Is he?
He is still around, and I didn't realise at one point he was married to producer Gail Ann Hurd, who's been on my channel, who was previously married to James Cameron. So, and I only found that out when I was prepping for the interview and researching, and I was like, oh my God, she was married to Brian De Palma as well.
Do you know what? I've just insulted him because I thought that's awful. I thought he was no longer with us. God, still going strong.
There's a really good documentary about him that came out, I think, about 2 years ago, and it's just called De Palma. And track that down because he's fully involved in it, and it's a really great.
I'll take a look at that. I like a documentary.
There's also an incredible book about the making of Bonfire of the Vanities called The Devil's Candy. It's a fantastic book. If you hadn't read that, I mean, it's an absolute warts and all.
Because that was quite a notorious shoot, wasn't it?
Nightmare. Absolute nightmare that spun out of control. Well, we're going to wrap it up there because we've kept you on past time.
Not a problem, mate.
Listen, really, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for asking me.
No, not at all. And I say this to all my guests going forward. you know, you're now considered an honorary member of the Outcast Creative. So if you do indeed get the funding to make that movie, and you want to come back on and talk about it and give it a bit of publicity, consider the channel open to you, or indeed for any other reason, or we might do a recap on your career in a year's time. You never know.
Well, hopefully there'll be more work in the diary and we can talk more.
Indeed. I want to say thanks to the Inside Man for co-hosting when I've got a croaky voice.
Absolute pleasure. I mean,
fortunately, we didn't have any connection issues. We've had great interaction from the chat. So thanks to my regulars for coming in. This time next week, we're going to be interviewing Joe Wezerak, who is the founder of Club Labyrinth from 1988 on the London rave scene. And Club Labyrinth is still going. They've got an event coming up in a few weeks, which I'm actually attending. And I went to my first Club Labyrinth last year. So we're at that club, because I used to have a bop at Bagley's, and I used to have a little bop on the stage there. And there used to be a girl. There used to be a girl that used to sit on the corner of the stage called Nicola Jane, and me and her always used to have a chat. And I walked into the courtyard at 93 feet east at my first Labyrinth event ever. And who's on the other side of the courtyard looking at me going, I know you from somewhere. It was Nicola Jane from 1992, who used to hang out with me in Bagley's. That is just absolute madness that we recognised each other.
So quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, it was such a lovely reunion. Anyway, Joe, who's got a million stories, my 5-minute chat with him on the phone turned into 2 hours. He's going to be an amazing guest next week, and then of course we've got the usual regular shows on Tuesday at 10 p.m. and Sunday 8 o'clock, where we review other films and movies in more detail. So that's it from us for tonight. Thanks again to the wonderful Cameron for coming on, and for his dog for providing entertaining background, authentic noises. We will see you all again real soon. Don't forget to do what I always say. Check on the people that you care about and that you love, and make sure they're doing okay, because, you know, these are difficult times that we live in. Give them a call. In the meantime, it's good night from me, and it's good night from him, and we'll see you all again soon.